everybody, thank you for joining me today. My name is Jen, I'm Easton Crafts, and today I am going to be making a knotted gemstone necklace. This is one of my favorite types of necklaces to do. I love gemstones, especially these like faceted rondelles, and I love knotting them so that on a silk cord. I love the way it flows. This right now is on a bead wire, and I had done this back, I don't know, quite a while ago, but I decided that I wanted to knot these up. It adds a little bit of length. These are a short strand, so they're like 13 inches, I believe. And so knotting just gives this little bit of space in between the beads, and it just adds a little something, and it flows really nice. So I'm going to do that. I need a ruler. So I want to make, the way I want this to lay, I want it to lay exactly kind of where it is. So it's about 15¼ inches long. And throughout this video, just to give you a little bit of warning, knotting does take some time. So I'm going to do, some speed it up a little bit, and then probably just some edit out some time too, just because otherwise no one wants to sit here and watch me knot for like 2-3 hours. So what you need for knotting is you're going to need your strand of beads. It doesn't have to be gemstones. You can knot anything. Pearls, glass, what have you. You do want to be a little bit careful with gemstones and glass as opposed to pearls. Depending on how the holes are drilled and the quality of the stone or glass, the edges of the holes could be sharp and eventually cut through your silk. Just something to watch for. One of the good things about knotting is because there is a knot in between each stone, if something does break, your necklace will fall apart, but you won't lose all of your beads all at once. It will just be probably the one where the knot comes off. So you'll need your beads to knot. You'll need a clasp attachment, and then I use the clamshell bead tips. If I can get this open. So these little guys. So there's a hole in the back there, and your thread goes up inside of it, you knot, and then you close these so that on the end it just looks like a little round bead when you're done, and you don't see the ending knot, and you don't see any loose threads like that. So use those, your clasp. I like to use silk. Beading cord comes in all different types of materials, nylon. I like the silk. This is Griffin bead cord, and I just grabbed a couple colors. I think I'm going to use gray instead of the brown. Gray, on my complexion, tends to be more invisible, so it will just be tiny in there. And then I'm also trying to, I've never been a big gold fan, but just recently over the last few months, I've really gotten, gold has just been something I'm drawn to. And I just put these charms on a gold chain, and this is a moonstone. And so I think the gray will go better with this than with the brown. And I like to layer necklaces, so I'm going to end up, it's going to be like this. And I don't really mind so much about the brass versus the gold, because I wear this a lot with another brass moonstone necklace that I have, and it's in the back. I don't really care about it. If it bugs you, they do make, all these findings come in many different colors. And then the brass I don't have a reaction to it. I'm not allergic to it. So there's that too. So you'll need that. And then you'll also need, I use a bead awl. So this is super sharp, but this is the tool that gets your knots really close to the beads, and you'll see how that works. I have a knotting tweezers if I need them. I do use them on the very last loop sometimes. And then just pliers and something to cut with. And then I have the bead spring catcher. Just as I'm going along, I can pop it on when I need to. And then a nail polish or a glue of some sort just to put on your knots, just to kind of keep it secure a little bit. Okay, and so this is a number 4. I'm going to cut this. And I will just reuse that clasp too. And I probably won't need those, but. So this is a number 4. So it's a pretty like average size that works. It just depends on the size of the hole in the beads as to what size cord you need. I may need to go down to a 3. I want to test the 4 first. You want to go as thick as you can. So these needles are just like a twisted wire needle. I always cut them once I get going, and then sometimes you're not going to be able to really see this, but so it's a piece of wire looped through the thread and then twisted up. So there's a small metal loop here where it attaches to the thread. If needed, you can sometimes pinch that with just a pair of pliers. You do want to be careful. It can break and then you're kind of hosed. So I want to test this. And so that little loop of the wire is stopping my bead. And so I'm going to try to squeeze it a little bit. If it still doesn't fit, then I'll need to size down. Let's see if I can get some more than just the one on. You might get a handful that go on perfectly, and then you'll get one that stops, which is always super frustrating like that. You can sometimes squeeze them on, but you run a risk of then cutting your needle again or breaking the needle or your thread. And I'm not going to put too many on here because I still need to stretch my cord, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to get stopped a few beads in, and I think I'm okay. Okay, so you can see with this cord that it's got kinks in it from being wrapped around this. So what you want to do is unwind the full thing, because you're going to start at the very end. You're going to start knotting at the very end of this, at the farthest from your needle. And you're going to take and just stretch it. And you want to do this so to work out some of those kinks, but also if you don't do this, the silk will eventually stretch just on its own as you wear the necklace, and then you'll have gaps. So where you're knotting up close to each bead so that there's no space in between them, there will become space in between them as the cord stretches. You can do this and kind of run it over like a boiling water, like steam. Not dip it in the water, but just kind of steam it, and that'll help too. But I have found that I don't really necessarily need to do that. Just stretching it works good enough. This doesn't feel great on your hands though, and I usually end up having to put a band-aid at least on one of my fingers when I'm knotting, because I do get like a callus on, I think it's this, just the way I hold everything and work it. So I'm not going to stretch any farther past that just because I'm not going to use that much thread. And I don't know, I haven't really talked a whole lot about my backstory on here. I mean, I've been making stuff for a long time, but I went to school actually. I went to a community college in my hometown, and I majored in photography. And then I went to the Art Institute in Denver, and I did photography there. And then when I was there, I interned for a magazine that was Memory Makers Magazine, which is a scrapbook place. And eventually that got sold and they moved the publication to like Ohio. And after that, and I ended up working at a bead store. And then we moved to Missoula, Montana, and I worked at another bead store there. So I have a lot of experience with beads and jewelry and stuff like that. So pretty much all of my background is in some sort of art or craft. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to put my bead tip on first. So I'm going to thread my cord, potentially. I could have done this using the needle if I hadn't put my stones on already. So I want to get that on there. So when I'm going up from the bottom to the inside. And then I'm going to tie a knot. And I want to make sure that the knot I get is big enough that it's not going to slip back through this hole. But the knot will sit just like in that little cup. And I'm going to tie another one just to be safe. If you have a really small cord, and you're working with a bead tip that's got a larger hole, or if the cord's so small that the knot just falls right out of that, you can tie your knot around like a small glass bead or something like that to block that hole too. Okay, and so now I'm gonna try to open this ancient clear nail polish. There we go. And I'm just gonna put some of that on there just to kind of glue my knot. And I'm gonna let that sit for a minute to dry. Okay, and so while that's drying, I can string some more beads on. I don't think I'm gonna put all of them on just yet, but in order to help it go faster, you can load up more. You don't have to do a bead, string a bead at a time for this, so to help it go faster. And I'm gonna cut this needle. I don't like having the whole like 3 inches of wire. And if you can take like a pinch of beads and just then run your needle straight through them and kind of help facilitate this a little bit faster too. And when you're knotting, you don't have to do your knots back to back. You can float beads and knot around each side. It's not something I'm going to do with this one, but it's something that is doable. You don't have to knot exactly this way that I'm doing it right now. Okay, so I'm going to close this clamshell around this knot. And I'm just using a pair of chain nose pliers. To close that, and then I'm just going to clip this end. And I like to put a knot right up against the end of this too. So I'm just going to take and tie a knot, like a loose knot like that, and then I'm going to take my bead awl and I'm going to insert it into that knot and then just pull it up tight, and then I'm going to pinch and kind of keep tension on it as I pull this out so that it slides right up next to that. And then it's essentially just going to be that repeated over and over. So I'm going to pull my bead up. I'm going to tie a loose knot, pull the awl up in there, and then just pull and keep tension on it and squeeze that knot as I pull the awl out. And because it's tapered, your knot gets close. And see how that gray in there is really subtle? And so it just kind of enhances the beads a little bit, but you don't see that color really coming through. It's a little, I might be getting a little too tight, but you want to be tighter rather than looser. And this is why I get the callus and the blister, is from holding that like that. So I'm going to pull these down a little bit farther so I don't have to stretch as much. And then as you get going, you'll get a, might have been too close. You'll get a good rhythm in this as you go. Actually used to teach beading classes at both of those bead stores that I worked at. And it's one of those things where once you get going on this, you get into this rhythm and you just go and go and you do these hand motions so fast, and then you're trying to teach someone to do it and you slow down and you can't do it the same way that you normally do it fast. So you just get into it and just do what works, you know, for you. The way I flip these and knot them may not necessarily work for you. Just do whatever works in order to just tie a knot. But you can see by the way that I'm doing this, this is why you don't want to have to string each bead individually, because it would just slow it down a lot when there's no need for it, the way you can just kind of stack them on. So I am probably going to go ahead and just speed this up and then eventually just edit and cut in a little bit when I get a little closer to done here. So you can see it goes, whoops. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and untie that, get that bead closer, and then retie my knot. So I'm going to speed this up, keep working on this, and then come back when I get a little bit closer to done to finish up the other side. Okay, so as you can see, I'm getting very close here. I've got another 1/2 inch or so, I think. Let's see. I want it to be about 15 1/4, and then I need to take into account my clasp length. These pieces are going to add a little bit of extra length to this. So I need to go about 14.5. So I need to do probably like 3 or 4 more beads, and I've got a few left here that I am not going to need to use, and then I've got a little pile here of ones that wouldn't fit over the needle end. So I will be able to use these leftovers for earrings or in another necklace or something like that. So when I get this big, now that I've got a string going, I can kind of just dump the whole thing in my hand as I do my knot. Which is that's one of the hard things to show because I just do it so fast, just not thinking about it. So I kind of grab it, wrap the knot around my hand, and then just kind of put all these in there and through to make a knot. See if I can do it slow. So I've got my loose one down there. And I just dump that whole thing in my hand and pull it through. And it didn't take me too long to get this far. It's been a little over half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. So not too bad, but I will admit I am fast at this. I've been doing it for a very long time, so. Okay, so there I'm at 14.5. And then with my clasp and the end of this, that should get me about where I want it. So I need to take these extra beads off because I'm going to need to thread my other side bead tip on here. Can get rid of that. Okay. So this time I'm going to go up through the bottom again. And then that's going to butt right up against that last knot. Okay, so I'm going to tie a new knot in here. And this is where my knotting tweezers are going to come in, trying to squish this little knot. Let's see here. Trying to squish this knot up inside that clamshell and get it tight is it's doable with an awl. It just is a little bit easier if you have the knotting tweezers. And so what you want to do, this is kind of a funky knot. So you want to get your knot like in that oval. And then you're going to take the knotting tweezer and kind of go between it, like inside of it, like this. I'm going to flip this a little bit. Get this knot a little bigger so you can see it. Okay, so I've got my knot in a nice circle. This is butted up there. So I'm going to take my tweezers and go inside the knot, and I'm going to grab down here with the tweezers where I want my knot to go. And then I'm going to pull it tight. And do that. And it's pretty good. But then because that's a smaller knot, so we want to do another knot to double knot it, maybe triple. But then we need this knot to loop over the top of that last one. So I'm going to take my tweezers, go through this loop, and take the tweezers and go right at the base of that last knot. grip on it like that. And then I'm going to take this down here and just kind of feed it where I want it to go. And then I'm going to do another one just for good measure. Sorry, this is hard to do without my head right over the top of it. And make sure that I can still see this little work close up here. My eye doctor says I'm not quite ready for readers, but I'm getting there, so we'll see. Maybe next year. Okay, so now I've got a good big knot in there, and it's nice and tight. And I'm gonna go ahead and take some of the clear nail polish again and just put it over the top of that knot. Just to kind of glue it. You can see I did end up having to get a Band-Aid on that spot where it rubs. I should have put one on this side too. I love knotting, but man, it's a little rough on the hands. Okay, so then we're gonna do on this side just like we did on the other, and take the chain nose pliers and just close this clamshell. And then I'm gonna cut this cord. And then I still have enough here that I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna wrap it back around the card and save it. I can probably get another necklace worth out of it. And then I'm gonna just need to put my clasp on. Let's see. And because this is an open jump ring, so if I had a closed loop here, I could just open my jump ring, but since these are open, I don't need to. One thing with these though, is you can't just kind of pinch them shut. They just kind of go a little funky. So I take them and turn them a little bit more with my plier and put that in there. And then I can pinch it shut. And then it's just a little loop on there. And then I'm going to repeat the same thing on this side. And this, again, this is an open jump ring, but I don't need to open it since this side is open. I want to twist this a little bit. And there you have it. Little knotted gemstone necklace that I can put with these guys. There. So thanks so much for joining me and doing this. I know it's a little something kind of different than what I've been doing, but I did want to get a little bit of my jewelry on here just because I don't really make, I have tried to sell it before. It's like any sort of crafting. Trying to make money doing crafting isn't always the easiest. It's hard to charge enough to make up for your time of doing stuff like this. So now I just do it for me. I mean, I give a lot to my sister actually, just because I like to make stuff and I can only have so much, I can only wear so much. But I don't sell it anywhere, I just do it for fun. So a lot of the stuff is just for me, and I really don't make a lot of jewelry, so I won't be filming that much probably, but I do love doing it. And I will put the materials list in the description box below so you can have a list of the things that you would need to make this. And if you have any questions, comments, please go ahead and drop those below. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff here. And then if you'd like, also follow me over on my Instagram channel, which is Easton Crafts. I post all of my completed projects that I work on over there. A lot of happy planner stuff, a lot of cards, now some jewelry, some knitting gets tossed in there. I like to make stuff in case that isn't apparent. So anyway, thank you.